What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are continuing to do well on this Saturday. And now we are on to the depth options at wide receiver. There are a lot of them. So many so we're not going to get through all of them even in this series. So there are going to be a few names out there that you could consider going after that do not get covered here. Just know that. So it's not like I forgot. It's just I don't have time to get through every single player. So these guys, their depth. Understand that, right? These are guys that you sign to be your number 4, number 5, number 6 receivers. If you're trying to sign them to be one of your top 3 guys, you're trying to get away with something. And you might get away with it, but I don't recommend it. And if you're trying to do it, it probably means that you're just not willing to do what you need to do to secure the things you need to win. At least not win on the level that we want them to, right? You're trying to win enough. You're trying to get to the point where you're in the fight rather than trying to secure the tools you need to win the fight. All right, lightning round, because these are all depth guys. They all kind of blend together. It just depends on your taste and preference. First guy's Tutu Atwell. Yeah, remember this guy? 160 pounds or whatever he is. Actually put together a pretty decent career in LA. Had his best season in 2024. 562 yards, 42 catches. Had a pretty decent year the year before that, too. So make whatever jokes you want to make, but he belongs in this league for now. Now, he might not belong in the league if he takes a big hit at some point, but for the moment, he has survived, and he's played in every game except one for the past 2 years. So doing something right. PFF is not a big fan. They thought he was about average this last year, and they thought he was below average, maybe even kind of bad the year before, relative to other receivers. But it's not terrible, right? It's workable, and he's depth at the end of the day. If he had a higher PFF score, he wouldn't be a depth piece. Botrack says 1 year, $4 million. Probably a little too steep for what the Seahawks are looking for. We already have a slot receiver. I don't think we need another one that's going to cost 4 million. Maybe we need one that's going to cost like 2 million, but somebody out there will probably bite. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, the hyphen. He's been a guy that I've always had my eye on because it seems like he's constantly available, but then he never actually leaves Tennessee. And he's coming off a little bit of a career year, 9 touchdowns, almost 500 yards. He's been a pretty good reserve receiver for years now in Tennessee, and now he has a chance to hit free agency. Had a 98-yard touchdown last year, by the way. Pretty cool. You don't see that every day. But Nick Westbrook, PFF, again, they're not really going to love any of these players. That's why these guys are depth pieces. But 63.4 still isn't that bad. It just ranks poorly. And the year before that, he didn't play enough to qualify, but 59.4 is pretty bad. So PFF is not a big fan. By the way, he's still relatively young. We're talking about a guy who's about to turn 28. So age, not really a concern yet. 2 years, 7.8 million. That's 3.9 million per year. That's not too bad. Because if you're thinking about him as a backup on the outside because he is a bigger guy, you might be able to put something together here that lines up with our needs. Diontae Johnson. Anybody want to try to crack the code on this guy? This one's tough, right? Like, very talented, made a Pro Bowl back in 2021, had a 1,000-yard season, seemed like he was on his way to becoming the next prolific Steelers wide receiver. Even in his down years, he was still giving you good production, but 2024 was a disaster. The only team he kind of produced for was the Panthers. He went to Baltimore, did nothing. He went to Houston, did nothing. And now I don't know what we're going to do here. He's not this is not the contract year he wanted to have. Seems like there's some head case stuff going on with him. Seems like he's not all there the way you want him to be. And he is going to turn 29 this offseason, by the way. He's not as young as you might think. So Diontae Johnson, I don't think you can look at him as anything more than either depth or a lottery ticket. Like, if you're a team that desperately needs another starting receiver, but you can't find one, maybe this is the guy you turn to because you're desperate. but you're going to have a heck of a time cracking this code. PFF thought he was pretty bad in 2024, by the way, 65.8. I mean, that's not necessarily bad, but it is compared to other receivers. And the year before that, they thought he was really good, 77.7, 27th out of 85 receivers, but it's not the on-the-field stuff that's a big problem with Diontae Johnson. Now, Spotrac does have an estimate page, 1 year, 3.6 million. I personally feel like last year was such a mess for him, he might struggle to even get this. It might be a true flyer. It might be a 1 year prove it deal at like 2 million. And because last year he crashed out so bad, being on 3 different teams, that might be about it. I don't know. There is talent here. Somebody might invest a little bit more, but I'm not convinced. Next up, we got Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch, very small receiver, only a slightly bit bigger than Tutu Atwell. Spent these last few years on the Cardinals, 2021 on. Last 3 years, he's been marginally productive as a depth player, starts a few games a year, and he gives you what you need in like a number 4, number 5 receiver. Workable production, catches a few passes a game, and he's there when you need him for depth purposes. Not too much else other than that. PFF, pretty low on him, 64 grade overalls, okay. Year before that, he didn't play enough to qualify. 68.2 is okay as well, though. Just kind of forgettable stuff. Spotrac says 2 years, 6.7 million, 3.3 million a year. Pretty workable, pretty decent. Again, this would be a guy who backs you up in the slot, backing up JSN. I don't know if I need to spend 3.3 million a year on a JSN backup when JSN had played so well last year, but he'll probably latch on somewhere for about this. I will say we're at the point where players can slip through the cracks very easily and not get anything. Demarcus Robinson, another candidate here from the Rams, spent most of his career in Kansas City, went to Baltimore for a year, and then went to the Rams last season. Played fairly well for them. A little bit of a bigger guy, also a little bit older, going to turn 31 when the season starts, so age is starting to become a thing. But he's coming off a season where he started all 17 games, so maybe he gets some credibility as a starter. I don't think he did enough. Barely had 500 yards. So I don't know if anybody out there is going to look at Robinson and go, that's a guy I want to hand a starting job in 2025. EFF thought he was okay, I guess, in 2024. Barely top 70 among 98 qualifying receivers. Year before that, graded a little bit better, 70 overall. But not anything terribly exciting, but appropriate for a depth player, which is what we're talking about him as. Spotrac goes 1 year, 3 million. Seems about right. Seems appropriate. Sign him as a reserve player. And if you need him to step up, he's proven he can step up into that like marginal third receiver role. But don't hand it to him. KJ Osborn, next guy. Been a while since he really did much of anything. I remember when he was on the Vikings many years ago. But in 2024, he had 7 catches and didn't last very long in New England. And New England did not have receivers last year, really. So if you can't last on New England, you're really struggling. His years as an effective depth piece / part-time starter were in Minnesota. He had 3 straight years where he was actually fairly productive. 50 to 60 catches, 500, 600, 700 yards. Going to turn 28 this offseason. Age is not a big deal yet. Pretty nice piece. This is the kind of guy I would look at. Now, 2024, he barely played. I'm not even going to look at that. PFF, not a big fan of his 2023, 53.8, one of the worst qualifying receivers. Year before that, better. Still not good. Still easily in the bottom half. Very close to the bottom third. Actually, in the bottom third for receivers. So, he is definitely not a guy you want to hand anything. But he is reasonable depth. Spotrac says 1 year, 2.4 million. I think he's worth that. I'll write off 2024 as a fluke, and I'll see what's up with him in 2025. I think that's reasonable. All right. Next guy is Mack Hollins. I've looked at this guy before. I've considered this guy before. won a Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2017, and ever since then he's bounced around. He's been on the Dolphins, he's been on the Raiders, he's been on the Falcons, he's been on the Bills. He just bounced around, and everywhere he's gone, he's been adequate. A couple of places have actually made him a full-time starter, but he's never been somebody who really produces at that high level. He's not somebody that I would want to hand a starting job, especially at this point. By the way, he's going to turn 32 right about the time the season starts. But as a number 4 receiver that can be a temporary number 3 in a pinch, I think it's okay. I think it works, especially in the Kubiak offense. So open to this one for sure. He's a little bit of a bigger guy too, so that fills a bit of a need. PFF did not like his 2024 at all, 60.3 playing in that Bills offense. And the year before that, a little bit better, but still not good for the Falcons. Just kind of, a mediocre receiver, but that's all you need sometimes. You don't need to be any better than this to deserve a roster spot in the NFL. And 1 year, $2.4 million is not going to set anybody back. That sounds about right to me. I think that'd be a pretty reasonable approach if you want to go the veteran receiver route. One last guy here for this video, Lil'Jordan Humphrey. Another bigger guy. Another guy that doesn't necessarily have huge production yet. He did have almost 300 yards last year. So he showed that he belongs in the league. And he did start 7 games. And he started 8 games the year before. Just doesn't really have that starter production. So you want him playing a very marginal role. But he belongs in the league. And sometimes that's all that need be said. Right? PFF, very little to work with. They graded him very poorly last year. One of the worst graded receivers. And the year before that, he didn't play enough to qualify, but he was not very good either. 60.4, near the bottom for receivers. Botrack, 1 year, $2.3 million. You're basically paying that money for his size and not much else because there isn't a lot else to speak of. But 6'4" receivers that have some track record of NFL production are going to get something. So, okay, why not? Let me know what you guys think. I know these guys are all kind of just like, it's almost like you're mashing them all together and you try to digest them and it all just feels like you're putting it all into a big casserole and no one piece is all that different from any other pieces. It feels like you're just blending all this stuff together. Nothing is likely to stand out, but if something did stand out at all, let me know. See you guys later. More videos coming up later today. We still have more receiver stuff. See you guys soon. Go Hawks.